Hi there. We would like to thank Kenneth Buchanan, Andrew Fornarides, Hakan Ibrahim, Ryan Beatty, and Dr. Suntree. All of these people and more have supported this show and our network by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. And you can too.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Papers, Please, which is a simulation game developed and published by 3909 LLC for the PC in 2014.
Cause no trouble.
Glory to Arstotzka.
Yep.
Actually, no, fuck Arstotzka.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah,
fuck all the places.
Yeah.
It's not very good.
Yeah, nothing
In
is
general,
good.
Yeah, nothing is good. That is the theme of this month.
Yeah.
This is Nothing is Good month. Welcome to March.
Mm-hmm.
It is Desperation Month, which is a one of our last few kind of theme months that we're trickling out.
Mm-hmm.
This was suggested by our patron, Michael Benavides.
Yes.
Benavides? If I mispronounced that, Michael, I apologize.
Yeah. Just the idea being we're doing this and Frostpunk and Stalker, just kind of doing an exploration of privation.
Yep, feeling bad.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, just scraping by is what we're going to do.
Yep. But it is a good month for games, even if it is a bad month for feeling good.
Absolutely.
About playing video games.
Yeah, I love everything we're doing this month, actually.
Yep. It's
So.
it's definitely good times.
Yeah.
So this game is kind of an auteur work
Mhm.
from a man named Lucas Pope. Ooh, not Lucas Polk. That's the,
I mean, that's the cowboy version.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Yeehaw, Lucas. It's time for Russia. Lucas Pope, who is a developer who worked on the Uncharted series, and actually has a pretty interesting career if you look at his other games. He has done a lot of little experiments like this.
Yeah.
And just kind of taking a non-traditional mode of activity and putting it through a game lens.
Yeah.
Like this. He's neat.
Yeah, I'm real curious. I've not played Obra Dinn yet, and I've not played anything that kind of like led up to this. So I'm real curious about his output. But this
I have not played
was...
Obra Dinn either. I've just watched videos of the stuff that led to this.
Yes.
That's all pretty interesting.
Yeah. And this was a pretty big indie darling around the time that it came out as well. 5 years ago, which is really hard to believe.
Yeah.
Just because it is so strange. Like, you're playing as an official working at a border checkpoint in this kind of fictional Eastern Bloc country of Arstotzka in 1982. So like it is trying to evoke like East Berlin, West Berlin kind of feels.
Yeah. Even though in this, it is not specifically a civil, war kind of thing. This is a specific border between nations.
Yes.
We're once at war. Yeah. And so in this job, the gameplay, the verb of this is to operate an immigration desk. You examine travel documents of migrants, some of which are natives to the country, some of which are migrating, some of which are visiting. And you are looking for discrepancies and contradictions and checking to make sure that their paperwork is in order.
Yes. And all of this is done. I love the physicality of this game. The interface is a thing of beauty, I think. Just because it is mimicking the physical space of your desk, of your booth. So you're like moving documents around and there's not enough space for you to have everything laid out at once. So a big part of the optimization of this weirdly is like organization and placement.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of giving yourself a little one-man assembly line. for it to kind of figure out how to do this kind of system. And I'll throw in this where to me the most impressive thing about this game, or secret impressive thing, is the sound design, the sound effects are extremely good and just make it feel very satisfying to play. In a way that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, still satisfying. Like, we'll get into it when we start talking about the experience of this. I find this game very stressful.
Oh, God,
like, I don't think this is fun at all.
Nope.
I did not have fun during my either playthrough of this. This is the second time I played it.
This game gave me nightmares.
Yeah, it's extremely harrowing. But for me, some people do just find it fun.
Yeah.
Definitely talked to plenty of people who do, but I don't. But I do just find that feeling of moving paper around, the feeling of the stamps, the sound of the shutter closing and opening, the sound of the dot matrix printer that
that haunts your dreams.
Yeah, that just comes through. I find that the sound design in this to be it reminds me actually a little bit of like one of the things we talked about when we talked about the Doom 2 shotgun. And why the Doom 2 shotgun is so good is because it's not afraid to be like loud.
Right.
And that's what these things are. Like, everything is pretty loud in the mix.
Yeah.
So, you just have this ambient sound. You don't have music during the day, but this ambient sound is a real low-level din. And then when something happens, like when you close the shutter on somebody or you take a picture of them through the scanner, it's loud. It's like it's very loud in the mix in a way that just makes it feel real and tactile.
Yes.
In a way that it ordinarily would not.
Right.
Or otherwise would not, rather.
I love the voice samples in this as well.
Yeah.
Like it goes a tremendous amount to kind of like weirdly dehumanize the entire situation, which plays into the theme. Like
graphics do that too.
Yeah.
Like the way that the art style, which we should also probably talk about here.
Yeah. Everything just looks and sounds so bleak. But still really impressive. Like, I think that from a visual design perspective, the color palette choice is what stands out, because everything here is like like this is pixel art. Like, you are seeing what appears to be like digital posterized sprites of, people. I don't know if they were drawn. I don't know if they were like, taken from photographs as reference, but everything has this kind of like olive drab and dim red kind of cast to it.
Yeah. And lots of people are odd shades of color, so it seems like you're admitting people from Doug Sylvania. Like all these skeeters and Patty's mayonnaise.
Yeah, they're coming from West Bluffington to East Bluffington.
East Bluffington. From Skeeter Stand.
Yeah.
This is but yeah, it uses those kind of abstractions, but also everyone has a very readable face because in a Guess Who sense.
Yeah.
Like, this has a lot of commonality with Guess Who in a weird way.
Yeah.
That board game. And it lands that. Like, the lack of detail is dehumanizing. But every detail that's used is important and necessary.
Yes.
In these drawings.
Yeah, like matching faces becomes really important, and it does really interesting things with like gender, I think, in a way that makes you feel super gross for invading people's privacy once you start unlocking the photo booth.
I was thinking about that as just, again, like 2019 eyes. Like, we'll get to that when the mechanic is introduced, but like, it is something where if it was made now, I wonder if it would take the same kind of attitude. Like, for me, this having this really heavy simulationist bent, having this focus on gender and having it be, a criterion, whether somebody presents as the gender they were assigned at birth.
Yeah.
Like in 1982 in fakey Zelda times, that would 100% be the case.
Right.
Now, maybe not. Like, if this were made now, that would be more fraught. So it's kind of interesting. It's not like this is not me saying like, oh, Papers, Please is hugely problematic in that respect, but it is something that I did not think about when I first played it and did think about now.
Yeah.
So it is at least like a marker in either a change in the conversation or a change in me. Either or. Yeah.
I think like my stance on it after thinking about it for a little bit, and this could be malleable, is like, it is another way that the papers dehumanize you. Like, if just because there is a mismatch between your identity and the paper, that can be grounds to, force you to give up your rights.
Yeah.
That's kind of the level that I saw it at.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is definitely what it's doing, but just the idea that somebody can present ID that affirms that they are a gender and they don't look that way. And part of your job in this game, part of the verb you're doing is to be like, nah,
yeah,
question that is fraught.
Yeah.
Like it is fraught to put the player in a position where you're questioning somebody's presented gender.
Yes.
Like that is not something you do.
Yeah.
That's shitty, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how this gets complicated because, that scanning for people's gender, the like taking invasive photographs of them and things is part of this, evolving story, where most days there is a new rule, that is added to your book. There is a new document that you have to examine, up to the point where you could be comparing as many as like 5 different pieces of paper, checking to make sure that their ID number matches across them, that there are no typos, that there's nothing that is that is left out. You're checking like diplomatic seals to make sure they're correct, looking for forgeries. And it just is really difficult to keep all of it in your head. Especially when you have to start like pinpointing the differences and, citing a reason, right, for why they need to go.
Yeah. Even though when you cite a reason, you it's just a separate stamp. So it's another step. It's not writing it out or anything like that. But that kind of mounting complexity is the mechanic of the game. And then that is pushed against the fact that you are doing a simulation with your home at the same time, where you are paid based on the number of people you process.
Right.
Through this correctly. So you have to not make mistakes. You're penalized for making mistakes. You're paid depending, if you do well, and you have this rent and heat and medicine and food and such constantly piling up.
Right.
On you, and your margins are very thin. So you have this time pressure to get as many people done in as the period that you have for the day, and whatever that ends up being. And there's an additional penalty when you let through mistakes, so sometimes they'll end the day early for reasons we'll talk about. And those two competing drives are where the game of this lies.
Right. That
if it was only one of them or the other, it would not be a game.
Right.
It has that kind of elegance to perfection. Like if you just were checking paperwork and had all the time in the world, who gives a shit? This is rote. This isn't a game.
Yeah.
If you didn't have all the time in the world, but there were no stakes for failure, then you would just accept all the way through, and then it wouldn't be a game.
Right.
It's those two competing things that lean on each other, and in that space between those two, leaning poles, that's where the game is.
Yeah, that's the key tension.
And it's very rare that you can pinpoint something like that so directly. In games where people are like, is this a game? Right. Like it is harder, as much as I don't go in for that argument. It is harder to know exactly where to find the game of something like Gone Home, just to throw out another early example of that, where the game is part of it, than it is for this. It is very obvious when you kind of look at the two tentpoles, oh, that's where this becomes a game. It's kind of very elegant to see the actual, strings and stitching and wire and such.
Yeah.
That transform this from a task or a toy, to an actual game.
Yeah. And the fact that it can be so precisely identified as hey, this is the elemental core of this game, makes it super, makes it remarkable how well it integrates with the actual story, because that tension also adds a bunch of weight to, decisions that taken in a vacuum would be, just kind of elementary, right? The game forces you to make decisions about the lives of these people, and divorced from any of these penalties and divorced from the fact that I have a family to take care of, I would be able to just very easily settle what that would be. As it stands, it ends up being a little bit more, if not difficult, let's just say personally brutal, let's say.
Yeah, it applies moral torque.
Yeah.
Through two different axes. So it is applying kind of a traditional one that is kind of obvious through your family and needing to provide for your family needs. And that is the justification you have to be a good soldier, right? And then it applies a humanitarian moral torque to you with these kind of sob stories with people who should, in a just world that is not, not necessarily a lawful one, but a just one, people who would be able to come in.
Right.
Or vice versa. Like it can put kind of a weight on these decisions. Yeah. So again, just one of those, like it would still have some of the weight, but playing them against each other is kind of where this game becomes kind of genius.
Yeah, and especially genius. Personally, I found myself yielding to the incentives, yielding to the punishments, and eventually starting to think, like, get annoyed at people who presented the stories, get annoyed at people who made honest mistakes, wanting to get people through because of the pressure the game was exerting on me.
Yeah,
and both time and money, right?
Which,
and
further dehumanizes them, which is the point of this. Like this game has it's one of those games where I think that the point of it is not, it's like actually very obvious. It is like an art game where it's easy to see the point of it, but that point is really inarguable and elegant, and kind of something you don't see expressed in games very often. And so direct. Like this is such a complete articulation of that point, and articulates nothing else. Really, like it's very focused.
Yes.
And that's what makes it not feel like, like wouldn't a game about hunger that tells me hunger is bad, like it doesn't feel like that. It's like, no, this is just this reminds me a little bit of a much more complicated and longer version of Dialogue 3D.
I've never played that.
So Dialogue 3D.
I know what you mean. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, who are listening to this, it's one of my favorite things that has ever come out. It is a mod of Wolfenstein 3D where when you're playing it, before you can actually pull the trigger on a Nazi, a prompt pops up on the computer that says, "Wouldn't it be better to start a conversation with them?" And you have to take your hand off the mouse, go over to the computer and type no, and then hit enter before you're allowed to fire each bullet.
But they can fire at you.
And they can fire at you the entire time. And it's like, that makes a point. It is super elegant and direct in the point it's making. But it's like, it's not ambiguous what point it's making.
Right.
Like when you look at something that has brutality to it, like even Frostpunk or Stalker kind of make more than one point, and are both of which are games I really like, but I don't think either of them are as elegant or as simple or direct as this is in making their points. Or even if you look at something else that kind of has that brutalist kind of sense to it, like Pathologic. I don't think Pathologic is as direct as this. This is like a kind of a perfect game in a weird way. Yeah. Just in that, like, there's nothing extraneous really added to it, and it does one thing. Yeah. It makes one point.
Yeah.
And that's really admirable, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. I think that's why this landed so well as like a message game, and, as something unique is that clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, you end up making, choices at the end, even with your family. Like you have a certain amount of money, and if you have a bad day, well, you might just have to not have heat for that day.
Yeah.
And then that increases the odds that one of your family members will be sick. So that just moves the expense down the road as you end up having to pay for medicine. And your family members can die.
Yep. And if they all die, it is a fail state. And the fail state is because the government sees itself as family forward.
Yes.
Like it wants family, crackers.
God damn it, you fucking beat me.
Yeah.
Some of our border agents may be single, but we'd rather not know.
Yeah, some of our border agents might eat crackers. We don't know, and frankly, we don't want to know. It's that. So it is just kind of you are in turn being dehumanized.
Yes.
By the government, and like the kind of this message about where it puts the player. Like you've got it in the notes here as like desperation breeds corruption. As easily as power does. I think that's definitely true. To me, just like zooming back just a little bit, to me, it just is like, what a good illustration of the kind of power that rules and regulations and such have over our lives. Like look at a wide sweep as something as simple as this bureaucracy. And how that will have devastating effects on people who are enforcing it and people who are subject to it. Even though on the surface, it's like, oh, we need these things to survive. Like, this is what society is. This is what civilization is.
Yeah.
Is having these rules and stuff set up and putting all that power into one person to enforce that. Like, and they will end up making decisions that are like catastrophically powerful.
Yeah, a single stroke of a pen can inexorably alter just thousands or millions of lives.
Yeah.
Right. And, the person who put that pen to the paper is not the person who has to be down and act as kind of the fulcrum for that.
Yeah.
This puts you at that fulcrum point.
So maybe it is exceedingly fucked up that we outsource any of our moral decision making to a binary rule.
Right.
Like maybe that is an exceedingly fucked up thing that we never should have done.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it creates cover, because it allows the situation where you can say, well, I was following rules and I was doing what was best for me. It was self-interest. But even though it was self-interest, even though self-interest is a proxy for the interest of the state. Right.
Yeah.
Just the way that people's drives are manipulated, the way that your prosperity and your freedom can be held hostage. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. So libertarianism, I suppose.
I like anarchy.
Anarchy, yeah.
Like choose the sexier one, Cole.
Yeah.
Like we want to get laid, man. We don't want to be libertarian. Like,
God damn it!
Come on, dude.
I said libertarian, and I immediately grew a necktie. Fuck.
Yeah. Like at least do a version where we kiss a girl. Like sometimes.
I was obviously joking.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I was joking too. I'm sure that there are libertarians who have at some point maybe coerce someone into kissing them.
Yeah.
Using a bargain of some kind. Rationalize it to them in their self-interest that they be kissed and paid all the appropriate fees. So you have your days. Some days will end up being cut short by terrorist attacks. Some will take you by surprise. Some of them are just due to you. Like you fucked up and let the wrong person in, which I love that.
Yeah.
And eventually this escalation happens where you have to actually take up arms.
This is like we can't afford guards, so here's a trank.
Well, that is a low key theme of this as well. Every job I've ever had, like W-2 style job, has eventually just had my boss just give me more and more tasks and make me fill in for more and more people.
Yep.
Like I've never just had a job where it's like I was hired to do X and I do X.
Right.
They always have that like big list of duties and 1% says other duties as assigned. And that is just a catch-all for your boss to just do shit like this.
Yes.
This is like taken to an extreme example, but like what a well-observed thing, to be like, no, you're going to be our security as well because it saves a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Fuck off. YouTube. Don't make them moderate ourselves. Like, any number of companies that do these kind of shortcuts.
Yeah.
Where it's like they, just give people multiple jobs like that. Broadly, there's a meta plot to this, but it is pretty broad and also very binary.
Yes.
Much more so than I thought when I first played it. Like it felt like there was a universe of possibilities when I first played it. And actually there are two paths.
Right. That is a little bit occluded by the fact that there are 20 different endings. Indigo Prophecy style, some of those endings are just bad ends or failures in particular instances.
Not some, like 85% of them.
Yes.
Like almost all of them are, it's one word that's different in the same sentence you get.
Yeah.
So like if you trank a citizen versus if you kill a citizen randomly, it is, you get one screen with a slightly different word on it. And that's counted as a different ending. I am not compelled by that system.
No.
Like I understand people are. If you look online, there are all these like achievement guides and how to get all the endings. And like, why do you want to see all these splash screens?
Because they're there.
Like, I guess, like there's almost nothing to them. Like it really feels to me like this is a one playthrough game. And even playing through it a second time, like I was shocked at how much of it was the same.
Yeah.
Playing through with a different path.
Yeah. And also it seems like there is more possibility because they mix in kind of randomly generated or procedurally generated people in with the scripted kind of events. You eventually get pretty good at spotting when somebody's going to be scripted. And the kind of the curtain gets pulled at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all in service of this meta plot, these two different paths talked about. So the state you're in, the Arstatska, is failing and it's trying to keep a thumb on the population. And there's also an insurgent group called Izek that is trying to overthrow it and bring it back to old Arstatska.
Yes.
And you end up siding with one or the other. You have to. and that determines if you complete the game and get all the way to the end, which of the two endings or sets of endings you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is not necessarily cut and dried from a personal perspective, because Ezek is applying torque to you as well. You know, they're putting you in danger and asking you to do really, really dangerous stuff that could get you exposed and potentially, you know, like the bad ending. If you try and go for the state and Ezek goes in, you can end up being killed by one of their efforts, you know, like nobody is good. Again, continuing that. Yeah.
And you're best served by choosing one.
Yeah.
Kind of path, like either do the revolutionary thing or stay loyal to the state. There's one specific choice that kind of bucks that.
Yeah.
Where if you're staying loyal, you will be asked to give up some evidence, and if you give that evidence up, you're actually, you know, found guilty of collusion or what have you.
Yes.
Other than that, though, you're best just choosing one.
Yeah. Choosing one and trying to succeed in the things that they ask you to do, because choosing and failing also results in you being caught in between and being executed.
Yeah.
That was my initial ending before I rewound and did the third way ending, which is getting out of Dodge.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're loyal, so there is an ending for both that actually ends with you living in Arstotzka happily.
Right.
And it is succeeding at all the tasks, for both of them, either saying no to everyone and just doing things by the book. The entire game will get you you are a honored citizen of Arstotzka ending, and then helping Ezek at every single turn, and succeeding the final event with him will get you the a place in the revolution kind of ending.
Right.
So it is possible to straight lace your way through. And get the good ending at the end of both paths. But you can also leave. There is that third way ending, which is just getting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lucas Pope, he was inspired to make this just by observing the behavior of customs agents when he was traveling internationally, just kind of watching them make the comparisons, over and over. Kind of, he identified a gameplay loop in that.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. He thought this would be very short, just like, this will be very easy. And it is a very modest game, but it ended up taking a lot longer.
Yeah.
Because that's how games work.
Yeah. And even though the game does evoke real life places, Pope has been pretty adamant that I've tried to keep everything fictional, trying to set the game in the world of this earlier experiment that he had done, this game called The Republia Times, where you're like the editor in chief of a newspaper under a totalitarian regime.
Yeah. Which is a cool little game. I watched some of that.
Yeah.
Very strangely, there is a short film based on this. I'm kind of surprised that you like this. Like I watched this today. And it's well done, but the messaging is terrible.
Yes. Yeah. So it is well done. I don't like the ending at all.
Yeah. It's a hateful project.
Yeah.
It looks really cool, but the idea is it is staunchly loyalist.
Yes.
The one time somebody makes an exception in service of their humanity, it bites them in the ass and
gets people killed.
Yeah, gets tons of people killed. So if the short film has the game has a message, it is just kind of about that system. It doesn't take a stance on it one way or another. You don't, if you're loyal, you don't end up getting executed no matter what. If you're a revolutionary, you can succeed at that. The game is kind of agnostic about that. It's more about the systems.
Yeah.
The short film chooses an ending, which is you should be loyal, because if you start trying to make your own decisions, you will get blown up.
Yes, because people from outside are inherently dangerous.
Yes, it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah,
it is well made.
I think that's what I was going for when I put that. It's pretty good in the notes. Yeah. The ending is balls, but everything up to it, the facial acting, for lack of a better word, when he is kind of agonizing over the different choices that he is making and deciding to, not let his guard friend's girlfriend in. Things like that. I thought that was good. I didn't know that it was going to add up to what it did, which is bad.
Yeah. Which is him feeling guilt over that, deciding to lapse in his duties and letting in a filthy foreigner. Essentially, it is a really great adaptation.
Yes.
weirdly enough. Like, it actually like is very direct and one-to-one in a way that you wouldn't think, like the same way you wouldn't think this could be really a game.
Mm-hmm.
If you tried to pitch this to somebody, a non-gamer American, like they would be like, oh, you can't make a game out of paperwork.
Yeah,
and
no.
it's like, well, you can't make a movie out of a game.
How does this advance
like,
boner culture?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't get rock hard to this. There is a nudity code, but I still can't get hard to it. Yeah. So there's no direct sequel to this. But Pope's most recent game, The Return of the Obra Dinn, is another puzzle game about observation and comparison, which I would very much like to play.
Me too.
I am worried that it has too many logic grid elements for me, but it is. It looks awesome.
Yeah. That aesthetic is chef finger emoji. Yeah.
Yep, it works for me. And also, I'm told that like there is a good amount of deduction that is not just, this person is to the left of this person that always wears a fork.
Right. Just the things that I've heard about it is that for the majority of the kind of, deductions you have to make, it does reside in this, the right gap to create these little sparks of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is what I want, is intuition. I don't want to just write stuff down to solve it.
Yeah.
I do not want a Sudoku.
Right.
Yeah. And that's about it for generalities. We'll get into it. A lot of these days are pretty the same.
Yeah, they are.
So we'll talk about what happens, but know that's an intended effect if you do end up playing this. You play it for a month, and it is, it is trying to make you feel that day in, day out feeling. So you might get a little bit of that here, but we are just going to hit those highlights.
Yeah. And talk about like the new rules and the mechanics that they bring in as well.
Let's get started with day one.
Let's do it. So the setup is that, hey, you won this labor lottery, which makes you think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it presumably is, as opposed to just dying.
Yeah.
I assume that everyone else is just starving.
Right.
If this is what passes for winning the lottery, like winning a job in this.
Right. It's like when Homer gets turned into the chimney sweep.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. But yeah, you're starting to work for the Ministry of Admission in East Grestin, kind of the East Berlin stand-in for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your first rule is pretty simple. All you have to do is admit only Arstotzkan citizens, deny all foreigners, it says. So you have one document, it's a passport. If it's from Arstotzka, you might be good. If it's not, it is a blanket denial.
Let's talk a little bit at this point more about the interface in the desk, kind of thing. So what you have is you get your brief at the beginning of each day, which you read through, which tells you your new rule. You also have a rule book, and the rule book has a couple of different like notable features. So it has all the rules, which eventually you have to start referencing.
Yeah. Even before that's a requirement, you have to, like, in order to get the proper documentation from them or prompt them to give you something new, you end up having to cite one of those rules in comparison to something that they've given you.
Yep. And they're just there for reference. You also have a map from there, and then a section for each country that says which towns in that country issue passports.
Right.
There. So you have this thing that you have to flip through pages, and early on it is extremely manageable. As you mentioned, as you get more documents, it becomes just about having stuff piled up on your desk.
Yeah.
But the basic flow early on is you click a button to send it to the next person. And you see your desk, and you also see the line outside and the checkpoint.
Yes.
And the kind of the top half of the screen in a way that makes this look like a DS game almost. Boy, it would work well on DS. The top screen part that you almost never interact with.
Oh yeah.
It just shifts down when you get out the gun, but other than that, you just move it around with the stylus.
Yeah, the top screen part that the game is trying to get you to ignore, so that when terrible things happen, it'll surprise you. Yeah.
Yep. So you buzz in somebody, they walk up, you see the little portrait, you say papers, please. They pass you. At this point, they're just passing you a passport. And then you just open it up and you ask them a couple of set questions. As we go on, and you're comparing those answers, you get a transcript of those so you can reference them. And that is essentially what you're doing, is moving around that paperwork inside your little booth.
Yeah.
But I just want to draw attention to that rule book, because that ends up being a big A big bugbear for me in things that I got caught on.
Oh yeah.
Like issuing city is my Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an issuing country, but
right. No, but like just the issuing city, it's almost always going to be, well, not always, almost always, eventually like just the more complex rules they get stacked on, that really basic stuff is easy to forget unless you have a mental checklist to like always, well, I mean, what I did was I just wrote out the names of the issuing cities to keep on my actual desk. So I could reference it without thumbing through the book, which is probably cheating, but I don't know, if I was working in that checkpoint, I probably would have it posted up too. So I saw that as role playing. Additionally, I forget if it's now or when you get the entry permits, you end up having to reference dates, like expiration dates.
Yeah, that's
so
rough.
Like internalizing what the date is going to be really important.
Yeah. That is super rough stuff. I think the way you cheated is like giving yourself an extended desk.
Right.
Like it'd be like if you gave yourself you brought in a TV tray to work.
Yeah,
is how you cheated.
Yes, TV trays are decadent though.
Yep, it's true. Of the West. So early on, this day is super easy.
Yeah.
Just everyone needs to have a passport. We're letting back in our soldiers. And nothing really happens this day.
Right. At one point, somebody walks up and just says, it was a mistake to open this checkpoint. He waited in line for a full day to say that to me, somebody with no power.
Yeah.
He didn't even hand me documents.
Yep.
Oh. So
day two.
Day two, this is the day where we can allow foreigners. So it's not just our Stoatskins. It is, want to pause here for a moment and see how crazy it is that rules change day by day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a bureaucratic nightmare.
Yes.
That would be for sure. So yes, you can bring in people, and this is now where you can highlight discrepancies, as we mentioned. So the way this works is if somebody does not give you a passport, you click on the rule for passport and you click on your desk, and I just assume that's you pointing at your desk.
Yep.
Going, hey, passport. And that is,
you pull out a copy of the game's manual. It's called Papers, Please.
Yeah, I said it when you came in.
So listen, lady. Yeah. So this is where you start getting people with the expired passports. This is, you end up looking at these misspelled issuing cities, things like that. There's no penalty for just denying somebody without pointing them out. I didn't realize that. And I probably put myself in I probably put myself behind by taking the time to call out every discrepancy before it was strictly needed.
Later on there is.
Yes.
Like they introduce that penalty, but early on you can just say no.
Right.
To people. So we should, so at this point also, like when you get somebody, you give them that discrepancy. If they don't have a thing, you can just say like skedaddle. Eventually that becomes a lot more complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Story beat here. We have an Arstotzkan woman who comes by with a pamphlet for a strip club. This is going to happen for a few days. And immediately I started worrying like, oh, this is going to be a human trafficking thing, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
So, yep. And there is, as we didn't mention this between the days, but you get a newspaper between each days where you just read the headlines, and these will be affected by what you choose to do.
Right.
Here.
Yep. And this is the day that ends with a bombing. Some people from the neighboring country of Kolechia. Very weird to see my name just at the beginning of the enemy country. Goes through, I think you let him through. No, somebody hops the barricade and then just throws a bomb at the guards at the checkpoint. Yep.
And this ends the day, and this is one of those other like kind of injustices is, since you get paid per person, you never know when one of these, eventually you do because it can sometimes be your fault, but days will end outside your control. Again, kind of dehumanizing you. So this day, you may be processed 7 people instead of the ordinary, 18 you might do, so you get way less money for this day.
Right.
At the end of every day, you're presented with this little stat screen that shows your rent for that day, how much you spend on food, and then after that, everything is optional. Yeah. So you can choose to spend money on food or heat, and you can see the health of your family, and it's an extended family. It's not just your kids; you're also your uncle, things like that. And eventually this can grow.
Yeah.
And the more people you have there, the higher those standing bills are.
Yes. For things like food and such, or if many of them get sick. The kind of accepted strategy is to just alternate food and heat, which there's really nothing that discourages you from doing that, aside from feeling bad that you're deciding, okay, nobody gets dinner today.
Yeah. Well, and just the feeling of gaming it.
Yeah.
It's like how in The Sims 2, how you call in sick to work every other day.
Right.
To keep your insane social meters up. You don't have to do this to win.
Right.
If you get quick enough on this, you can, at least with the loyalist playthrough that I did, like after a false start where I died, I started over and got quick enough at doing this to get to the good ending without anybody getting sick.
Yeah.
Or without turning off the food or water. But I also had to, do a bunch of inhumane shitty things to stay loyal. So
yes.
No.
Yeah. Day 3, the new requirement here, this brings in an entry ticket, which gives you another expiration date to check. There's a date that's like, hey, enter by this.
Yeah. I find that very hard too.
Yeah. Date math is tough.
Yeah. Date math is tough. And it's not like it's not a real date. So you're checking date math versus this fictional date that's on the screen. Like if it just like updated your computer clock or something,
right?
I could just know, I know what day it is in real life,
right? That makes eventually, like if you play enough days in a row, you kind of internalize what it's supposed to be. But this game is very resistant to taking breaks.
Yeah. Yep. You do not want to do that.
Yeah. Day 3 is where we meet Georgie for the first time.
I love Georgie.
Georgie is so good.
This game has jokes in it, which it doesn't seem like, and it would need to, because otherwise it would be exceedingly dour.
It would be unrelentless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it would be
relentless.
There's
a lot of jokes to him at first. Like he just doesn't, he shows up without a passport.
Right.
Like this gets like very funny actually as it goes on.
And I initially thought like you go through a real journey with Georgie actually. Because, at first you think, okay, well, he is making my life incredibly difficult. He almost ends up being like a mid boss or a boss kind of character, to get you to figure out, like, just, if you're trying to figure out exactly why he can or cannot be let out. He would be far less interesting if there was never a point where he actually could be let in. But I think there are a couple where all of his stuff is right. And you get dinged for leaving him out. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets correct. We should have mentioned this earlier before too, is you get 2 mistakes per day.
Yes.
Before you're penalized. So that's a really elegant system as well. One that allows for mistakes, but 2, the real kind of like papers, please starts when you start making mistakes. That becomes a resource. I'm going to make mistakes on purpose because I want to let this person in, even though I know they're not just.
Yeah.
I'm going to sacrifice one of my chances at fucking up, in order to make this good decision or to get this financial gain, depending on how things are.
Yes. When violations are given to you, that matrix printer sound, I would let somebody through and just wait and hold my breath to see if I would hear the.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's very nerve wracking.
Yes.
Getting two things is pretty generous. It also had that thing again. This reminds me of actual jobs I've had where I'm like, if you're just checking them anyway, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah, I know, right? If you know the answer.
Yeah. Like you omnipresently know who should come through. So the day ends. Again, not a whole lot happens that day, other than it being in the wake of that terrorist event, which put you on edge. Like it does feel like, oh, that can happen anytime.
Yeah.
Day 4, because of that event, restrictions are more strict now.
Yes.
Even if you are from Arstotzka, you need an ID card, and foreigners need an entry permit. So.
Yeah. So more information to check. The ID cards can be forged, like they have issuing cities as well. So you want to check those out. Later on, the height that is listed there and the weight that is listed there becomes a thing you have to work out, because you notice, oh, the booth has a scale and the booth has kind of like height markers in the back.
Yep.
And the foreigner's entry permit has another expiration date for you to check.
Yep.
Yeah. Along with the reason that they're coming as well. So you have to what they say when they walk up becomes important.
Yep. And it is kind of again, it doesn't seem hard, but you are trying to optimize a system where you have to read at the same time you're checking these dates and such. Like if you just wait for them to get around to telling you what their thing is, sometimes they'll make chit chat with you.
Yes.
And you do not want that because you want them to tell you the reason so you can compare it and get it off of your list. And, you know, so what you end up having that transcript, but that's almost always less efficient than multitasking and checking the dates at the same time you check the reason.
Yeah.
Or just kind of file it in the back of your brain. Like it activates a part of your brain that is not used during games very often, but is used during work.
Yeah. Which makes this game really hard to play for, you know, for long periods of time. It is stressful in a way that a lot of games just are not, because you are paying such close attention for such a protracted amount of time.
I stretch this over more sessions than it needs. Like it's like a 4-hour game. And I stretched it over, you know, like 7 nights.
Yes.
Or something like that, just to take breaks.
Yeah.
Georgie comes back.
Oh, he's back. You know, you send him away for not having a passport. He hands you a passport that appears to be drawn in crayon.
I love it.
And it says so much. It says he's from the country of Cobra Stan.
I love Cobra Stan so much.
It's so good.
Like I am way into Cobra Stan. You can get a Cobra Stan t-shirt, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, sweet.
From this. And we didn't really talk about this when he first shows up, but his whole thing is that even when you deny him, he's exceedingly cheerful.
Yep. And
really friendly. And that is like where the joke comes from.
I was like, oh, I'll come back later. The only time he ever loses patience with you is when you deny him when he's supposed to get in. Yeah. He just like, he completely turns it off. But his just complete unblinking cheerfulness and politeness, even when you like, when you point out something he's doing wrong, he's like, you caught me, I'll be back next time.
Yep. Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
he knows the game. There's also a system here, so you've got to hear in the notes, this can happen earlier in this, I believe, but this is the first time, good time to talk about it, is someone's picture which doesn't match. So you say like, you don't look like your picture, and they will say like, it's been a hard couple of years, or you know, I cut my hair, or I lost weight or something. And you give them a fingerprint to fill out. And one of the things here is you can kind of visually match those fingerprints, but what I found to be a very quick time saver is just set them up as, call them a discrepancy. Just click them and say discrepancy rather than comparing each fingerprint.
Oh,
and it will just say match.
Like,
yeah, or no discrepancy found.
Yeah, for me it was quicker just to look at it, because when they're different, it's very obviously different.
They tend to be, yeah. I think I got burned by one that was subtle in a way that I was not comfortable with.
They'll do that. I think it happens primarily in the last part of the game. Like weirdly, the difficulty of the discrepancies ramps up. So like when the ID numbers don't match or the passport numbers don't match at the start.
Horrible. That's so rough.
But like early on they'll be completely different, but like later on like the difference will be like kind of in the middle. So if you're just kind of scanning and looking at the beginning and end, they'll catch you there, or there'll be a digit that's left off of one or the other. It just becomes, the digit left off is extremely tough. It just becomes harder. It becomes harder to detect in a way that feels very cannily designed. Yeah.
And fits in the fiction. So if people are doing forgeries, the forgeries are getting better because the border security is tougher.
Right.
You know, so it like actually works just perfectly in the fiction, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Moving on to day 5. When you get the paper, it says a fugitive from Republia. I kept reading that as Republica. And I'm like, oh, that band. Like so somebody menudoed out of Republica. But there's a fugitive from Republica, a track star named Vince Lestrade, who gets mentioned.
Yes.
There's kind of one of the most wanted. And not coincidentally, we get the ability to detain people if their information doesn't line up.
Yeah. And it's pretty much left to your discretion whether you reject somebody or detain them. There are times where detention is mandatory. Like if they are specifically caught in a lie, but you have the option to send somebody to secret prison if they present you with an expired document, and you think, oh, that's an easy choice. Why would I detain somebody for that? That's going to get complicated later.
Yeah, like very soon.
Yeah.
The detention stuff is very disturbing. Like your shutter slams, so you don't actually see what happens.
You see like an outline of it.
Yep, you see an outline, and then 2 guys come up and point guns and just yell for someone to get out, and they lead them again perpendicularly off the screen, not into the country or back towards their home country or towards the border, just up.
Yes.
If
the person resists or won't leave the booth, you will see them be whipped with a rifle butt.
Yep.
And knocked out. It's pretty brutal.
And it's very sad when you start doing this just for people with expired passports, which, spoiler, like I do.
Yeah.
Did, even though it feels bad, is because they're always confused by it. Like they just presented with a thing. You don't even have to tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
Or like you say that, this is expired. They say, oh, like I'll get it updated, or, oh, I'm sorry, I'll leave. And then you detain them and they're like, what's going on? Like what's happening? And it's just a very scary and brutal thing to do to somebody.
Yeah. And they may never know, which is, part of the horror of this.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is where I think the most famous moral choice of the game comes by, which is a husband comes through. They're fleeing Republia. A lot of these people are fleeing repression elsewhere. All of his papers line up. He has the permit, etc. His wife is going to be coming through. He says, "Hey, take it easy on my wife." And he goes through, and you have to decide: do you eat the violation and let her through because it is the humane thing to do to keep a married couple together? Or do you reject her and leave her to an unknown fate separate from her husband, pretty much needing to flee back to a repressive state, and nobody leaves home unless it's the mouth of a shark. So you'll be sending her back to it.
Yep. Do you separate this family?
Right.
This, and the version of this that would come out now would be like Ice is Nice. And you would just play as an ICE agent, just like, duck goosing children to put them in, separate them from families.
Yeah. Additionally, this game is incredibly depressing to play with 2019 eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even more so than it was back in 2014.
Yeah.
For
which
me,
was also
personally.
depressing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is, since I was playing a loyalist playthrough, this was, I was just like, you can't come through, your thing isn't. And it did feel shitty. Like it is a way to, it's not the way I would recommend playing the game. It feels like garbage. But it does become easier a little bit because you are offloading that morality, which is the same thing that, people who have this job in real life do.
Right.
And there's an ease to that. This is also the choice that the short film decides to make.
Yes.
Bite you in the ass.
Right.
It's explicitly this. So it is the best thing is to let them both through. I did not let them both through. Nothing really happened other than me getting an extra $5.
Right.
So.
Yep. So that's what that family was worth. $5.
Yep. In Ostrowska.
Blah. Day 6, we are introduced to a labor problem in our Stotska. So any immigrants who are coming by, specifically to work, need a work pass that will describe not only what they are here for, but also say how long they should be here to work. So it is more date math that you need to do. Yep.
The woman comes through, gives you the strip club flyer again, but also says a note and says there's a man named Derry Ludum, which that has to be, that's a joke about Ludum Dare, but what about them?
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what Lucas is trying to say.
Yeah, what are you saying about the place for experimenty games that sometimes give you super hot and sometimes give you a big pile of stuff that is unplayable? Like, what are you trying to say about them, that it's a sex trafficker?
I don't know.
So Dari Ludum comes through and or says, he's in line behind her. He's a danger. Don't let him through. Anytime there is that thing, whatever is the most like twist the knife choice is what's true. So it'd be very easy if his papers weren't in order, but of course they're in order.
Right.
So I have to let him in because I'm doing that playthrough. But the correct thing to do in real life is not to let him in.
Right. However, there is a different part of this. You have to detain him. Is the thing. If you just decide not to let him through, he gets in and he kills those women.
Yeah. Yep. The game has a real agnosticism about stuff like that too. Like a lot of the consequences are mechanical and play into the sim part with your family. A lot of them are just what headline you read.
Yes.
Like if he kills those women, nothing bad happens to you. You just have to decide inherently that is a bad with your own humanity.
Yes. What actually happens in the game is matter of fact. Maybe to a fault. I don't know. That's up to you. But that is the voice that it decides to take.
Yeah, it is about the systems.
Yes.
And the systems allowing for the thing as opposed to just the thing itself, making a commentary on the thing.
Yes.
So much.
With the work pass, and as they start adding more documents that you need to get in, I want to talk about how frustrating it is and how let's just say unreasonably mad I got when somebody would give me incomplete documentation, and I would say, "Oh, do you have this?" And they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, like you just made me add an extra step. What are you like?
Yep.
Just give me everything you have. You remembered to bring it." Or when they say, "I will be here for 3 months," the document says 1 month, and you prompt them and they say, "Oh, yes, I mean 1 month."
Yeah. Well,
just make it easier for all of us.
It's like you're not, that's another way that the game is making you into a monster.
Yep.
Because the reason why, no, I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying like, that's very intentional that makes you pissed off about that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it outside of playing the game, it's like, oh, they're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just went through like all these guys have assault rifle 15s.
Yep.
Standing outside them, and like they probably heard stories at this point, about this border. They heard about the bombing and stuff. Like they're nervous as hell. Of course, they're making really, really dumb mistakes.
Yeah. And like people's indignation, they spent a lot of money and time getting those documents too.
Yep.
Whether they got them officially or got forgeries.
Either that sometimes they're indignant, sometimes they're just like incredibly sweet and apologetic.
Mm-hmm.
And you are treated to round both those down into an inconvenience to your job.
Right.
Because, I guess another one of those like weird backdoor themes about this, or just kind of something it does, is that like employment really does dehumanize us.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, not inherently and not all employment, but like something about it does encourage rounding errors, of people.
Right. Right.
Even if it's, this is obviously a very high stakes thing. Even if you were working a counter at like a burger place and someone asked you for an extra straw, like anytime I've worked at like a shitty job like that and someone asks for something very basic like that, I get a little bit annoyed because I have to do it and it sucks. I'm mad that I'm in that position of subservience.
Yeah.
Like I used to get, when I worked at the department store, I used to get mad at people who wanted to double bag things. And it was like, who gives a shit? Like that's a very simple, just like if someone just walked up in the street and they're like, "Hey, would you, hey, could you hand me this thing?" I'd be like, "Yes,
yeah,
yes, please let me help you." Like we are strangers on this road, but together we will be stronger than we would be apart. And then employment rounded me down into a worse person.
Yep.
To where I would be annoyed at a simple human kindness.
Yeah.
This is magnifying that to make the effect even more pronounced.
Yeah. Like an incentive doesn't have to be designed to be perverse to make us perverts.
Yes.
Right.
And this is much like real life in Papers, Please. If you want to hold on to that humanity, it is effort.
Yeah.
Like it is an act and a verb to constantly keep in mind, no, this person is just probably nervous, and that's like a level of RP serverness that not a lot of people are going to bring to this game. But if you want to not feel that, you have that option to just be like, yeah, like, I'm going to choose to understand this. Like, this is like this is water speech, but the game.
Right.
Yeah,
but I mean, it just like this game, it is brilliant in that it turns those systems and incentives into dissonance for you.
Yes.
Like it caused me to interrogate my values and really consider what it was having me do in the name of numeric success. Right.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Super, super good.
So this day ends because you let somebody through from Kolechia who has valid papers, but he had a bomb on him and he suicide bombs the area beyond your checkpoint. So you followed the rules. He didn't, and that led to people dying. Yep.
So because of this, hey, if we now have a scanner, so like similar to an airport, like we're like TSA agents now.
Yep.
Added to the booth, anyone who is a Kalechian who comes through needs to be searched.
Right. So violating somebody's bodily privacy because of where they're from, pretty bad.
Pretty bad. And this is great. So like when generally the first person who comes through is always a tutorial for whatever the day's new mechanic is.
Yes. So
the first person who comes in is a Kalechian, and you go in, you say like, you tell them it's a random search, which I love. And then the shutter comes down, you hear two very satisfying flash bulbs. And then you get a picture of them kind of schlubby in their underwear.
Yep.
like nobody looks real good. Like there's lots of chub.
Yep.
Like, kind of going on in this. And I think that's really, really great too. Like it just feels very undignified in a way that it is undignified to, as a government agent, ask to see somebody nearly naked.
Yeah.
Further shaded by the fact that oftentimes they have shit on them.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, like this actually saved lives violating the civil right. Like,
yeah. Like you really shouldn't have tried to break this rule. Like you came through intending to hurt people. Well, like,
you shouldn't have come here.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have come here. Like just like, why are you making it necessary for us to have these rules in the first place? You fucking murderer.
Yep.
Yeah. But you end up needing to kind of point out, or you take the picture of them. The thing that will let you know whether or not you need to scan them oftentimes will be a discrepancy on their weight. So if their document says they should weigh some number of kilograms and their actual weight is some number of kilograms plus 2 or 3, that is grounds to take a picture of them. But you have to call out that discrepancy in order to raise the scanner.
Yeah. It does a good job of stopping you from just covering all your bases.
Yes.
Like you have to hit those discrepancies first.
Yeah.
So, and people are going to try to sneak in weapons and such, but sometimes people are going to try to sneak in drugs to sell and sometimes medicine.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, a person comes in and says, hey, I have, this is actually medicine. I'll give you this bribe to let me in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't let in anyone, but you can let in somebody with medicine.
Yeah.
But you would understandably be gun shy.
Well, yeah, because you've seen people die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And also, why should I believe you? You were trying to sneak it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why should I believe that it's medicine and not drugs or bombs or anything? Yeah.
It's turning you into the paranoia that the state has.
Yes.
Day 8, the Kletchians have filed a complaint about the searches. So we've temporarily halted those searches, but they're sending in a diplomat.
Right.
Diplomats need a different set of passport. They need a passport and a diplomatic authorization to get in.
Yeah. So you end up having to check the seals, most likely, or check whether they are authorized to be in Arstotzka.
Yep. Because sometimes they're diplomats for other areas.
Yes. And this is where you get your first encounter with an EZIC agent. He walks up saying, hey, the order awaits, and he gives you a note.
Yep. The note just says EZIC. I think they went a little over the top with how these guys look. They look like G.I. Joe villains.
Yep.
And I felt like, anyone with an assault rifle 15 is going to just shoot you.
Yeah.
It is not going to be, you're not going to get this far into the line.
Yeah. I know like what they're doing is like they have hoods up and it's casting a shadow over their face. It looks like they're wearing featureless masks with a sun drawn over one of the eyes.
Yes. It's very culty.
Yeah. So that is something you're going to have to deal with later on because they're going to start giving you tasks. This is also the first time where you end up needing to scan somebody because their gender is ambiguous.
Yep. We kind of talked about that early on in the episode.
This game has nudity.
Yes.
Like it's an option, but it does have nudity. Yeah.
Yep. It is up to you how nude you want these people to be.
Mm-hmm.
So hot coffee. So moving on to day 9, you get a letter from EZIC. They come through with the name Corman Drex on the back.
Right.
And these letters, when you get them, tend to, like, the revolutionary stuff is very boilerplate. It's not very complicated.
No.
It's a lot, anyone can see the government is totalitarian and this country didn't used to be this way. We need to change it from the inside.
Right. Yeah. We are here to stop the corruption and do not question what we are doing in order to make that happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Ministry of Information, they found a spy. So they're sending a liaison today for you to look out for as well. So you're trying to keep track of both Corman Drex and this liaison. And additionally, we have another complication. One of our guards, one of the people who mans the detention center, he says, hey, I get a bonus for each time I detain somebody. It would be in both of our interests. Like, you're not detaining enough people. I will pay you $5 for every 2 people that you detain. Just as a way of sharing the bonus. That way we all get richer at the expense of these people that we are unjustly imprisoning, interrogating, and most assuredly beating.
Yes. So it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I probably, at this point, we haven't talked that much about the sim part at home, but even if you were doing very well, it is designed to be razor thin.
Yes.
Like you have a savings that you can carry forward, but there will be unexpected expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing incredibly well, you can actually move your characters up into better apartments.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, there's no benefit to that.
It just seems to make the rent more expensive and the heat more expensive.
Yeah, it makes it more expensive. I think the idea is just like you have to imagine that it's better for your family.
Yes.
You know, a class 8 apartment, a class 7 apartment sounds better than a class 8.
Well, yeah, it's one whole apartment better.
Yeah. Yeah, you get 7 apartments instead of 8. So less cleaning. So it's just there are a couple of things like that, but there will also be weird little disasters that will pop up or opportunities to spend money. So having a tiny little nest egg of like $30 is very useful.
Yeah.
So this is an easy thing to take this detention thing because ostensibly they're people you'd reject anyway. Yeah. It's not outside the rules to detain all these people.
Right.
It's just inhumane.
Yeah, and they're going to be people that you're going to detain anyway. So like if they had contraband on them, I might as well get something for sending them up there, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't mention this in the generalities. One other thing you can do in addition to upgrading your apartment, you can upgrade your booth. Which I like that you are spending your own money to upgrade your work facilities. Mm-hmm. All of those upgrades are just little interface niceties. So like pressing a button to bring out the stamps as opposed to moving the mouse over and clicking on them. Yeah, keyboard shortcuts.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so all that stuff has been happening. Early on in the day, this woman approaches and says, "Hey, I've got these 2 folders. What you need to do is give the fake one to an imposter so that they can pretend to be the person from the Ministry of Information." And it's funny, if you look inside that folder, it's all about Kalechian ducks.
Yep.
So you're doing somebody is asking you to do a little bit of a switcheroo to get a fake minister in.
Which is a big move.
Yes.
I don't do it because I don't do anything that's against the rules in this playthrough.
Yeah.
But presumably you do if you want to be a good person and do the revolution.
That was your tack. My tack was to attempt a revolution incompetently.
The two, I guess, I mean, that's kind of saying something too, is that if you fuck this up, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So Corman Drex arrives. He gives you a piece of paper explaining that Ezek wants to overthrow this Aristotskin regime and gives you a code sheet when you give him his pamphlet back. Usually they ask for their materials back.
Yes.
They don't, and it shows up with one kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pops up.
The code sheet has a bunch of garbage text on it. A little bit later, you're going to get something that lets you read it. Yeah.
Yep. In a pretty super basic, like little cutout cipher thing.
Yeah.
Some real escape room 101 stuff. Moving on to day 10. The headline says, Kolechia cleans house, attacks its own. Round of disappearance blamed on faulty evidence.
Oops.
Yep.
That's what happened when I switched those doc papers.
Yep. So even when you try to be good, you're causing suffering somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. This is where you get your first little evaluation. Your boss comes by, not the auditor, not the creepy boss who is always there when you start the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes just like he doesn't walk up. He's just been standing there. No, this is kind of a mid-level boss. He comes by to tell you how many citations you've gotten. I never got more than a certificate of sufficiency. But I hung it with pride, even though some folks made fun of me for doing that.
You can get excellence.
Okay.
I couldn't do it either, but I got sufficiency, which is very funny, and I would very much like a certificate of sufficiency in real life.
Yep.
Like, I think that is funny.
One day I'll earn a certificate of sufficiency.
Yep. Adequatulence. So, but you can do very well. You can also get the no certificate, like you have to improve.
Yes.
Thing as well.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a man shows up after this, and you can hang things on your wall. I love how this kind of plays out too, like decorating your booth. Again, these are small changes. Like, they sound like small things, but because you're so trapped in this like work zone, it feels big.
Yeah.
A man arrives with an entry permit, or without an entry permit, and when you deny him, he won't leave. So you detain him. This is the first time the guards have to come in and rifle butt somebody through it.
Yep.
Crack somebody in the skull. Another
piece of good sound design. Like, it's a real thwap he gets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is where you get the card that lets you read the code sheet. It's got some holes punched out of it that reveals the names of some agents you're supposed to let through. I had Stephanie Greer and Mikhail Saratov. One of the ways that I fucked up my EZIC run through was just by forgetting those names, which is easy to do because you're seeing tens of people a day.
And there's not a way to write that down in your booth. Like you'd have to kind of cheat into the real world to do so.
Yeah.
Day 11. There's been a break-in at the Ministry of Information and has compromised our Stotskin documents. So you now need to check and make sure seals are valid.
Right.
It's introducing the counterfeit seals. Georgie comes through, and this is the first time his papers are in order.
Right.
So you let him through. And this also, there's a little bit of shade to that too, where like, oh, I know this guy's probably up to something because of his history. Like, do I minority report this dude?
Right. Like, do I just deny you because I know something's got to be up?
Yep. But instead, because I'm doing rule follow thing, I definitely let him through.
Oh yeah. If you don't let him through, I let him through because I was, even though I was being revolutionary. Awesome. Yeah. Like Georgie's really good. But if you don't let him through, like he breaks character. He says, you know what? Fuck this. You worst person, our Statska worst country. And then he goes. I don't know if he comes back after that, actually.
It'd be a bummer if he didn't come back.
I know, right?
There's a metagame in this of collecting little coins for each of the countries. And he is the way to get one of those.
Yeah, to get the Oberstan one.
Yep. And that is just it's essentially another kind of achievement.
Yeah.
So just a little collectible. That guard comes through. We've been detaining people left and right with your bribe, and he gives you way less than he said he would. He gives you like $10 or something.
Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, well, my wife got sick, so your payment's light.
Detain more people. And it's like, man, fuck off. Like it is crazy how frustrating that becomes. Where it's like, I don't even care. Like you don't even care about the sick wife.
Yep. Right.
So,
like perfectly good, the good motivation, but no, fuck you. I've got a sick wife too. She needed medicine.
Yep.
Oh, so I let one of the agents through, and a man came by from EZIC, and he gave me $1,000, which Yahtzee, right? Like holy shit! Like when I'm trying to keep a nest egg at $30, 1,000 is too much. It is too much. If you don't burn it, your neighbors report you because, oh, right, this is totalitarian. Watchful eyes are everywhere. So yeah, it gets you in more trouble.
And this, it's a way to get at a game over. This happens even if you haven't been letting people through. Like it's kind of in that if you've been loyal to the government, it feels like it articulates as a like, maybe this will change your mind.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Day 12, there is a story about how the Greston Metro has been halted, a tunnel caved in. So I think that was because I let some ASIC people through.
Yeah,
undoubtedly. Yeah.
When you open the shutter, there's an inspector there.
Oh, this guy looks so creepy.
He's good. He's got mirrored glasses, like that creepy kid from Sin City.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And he asks you if he shows you like, hey, have you seen this symbol? And he draws you the symbol for EZIC. This is a way to get a non-standard game over, even while being loyal.
Yeah, because you just hand over the code sheet.
Yeah, you can say, yeah, I have seen it, and you hand him the code sheet, and you get arrested.
Right.
So even if you're being loyal, you can't be entirely open with your government.
Right. No. Yep. So this guy will be your nightmare because he does pop up. He never walks up like your mid-level boss does. He's just there when you open the shutter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spooky.
We get another little incentive here. I have no idea if this is, so I don't know if this is a bad thing, but I kind of think it might be. We have got a guy who says, yeah, I'm looking for engineers. And he hands you a bunch of cards, like I'll pay you for each engineer you send my way, and you determine that by looking at their work permits. I
don't think there's a bad thing that happens with this. I think you're trained to think that there will be.
Yeah.
Because nothing good ever happens. And I think this is relatively benign.
Okay. Yeah.
And this day can also, I don't know if it automatically ends, but can end with another Kalechian suicide bomber.
Right. Yeah.
Getting through.
Yeah. So I had no idea that was my fault. I thought that all of those were scripted. So there are going to be a bunch of times where just a day will end because of a terrorist attack.
Yeah. Some of them are scripted, and I don't remember which days. Like there are 33 days in this game.
Yeah.
Or 32 days. I remember which ones are scripted and which ones aren't. I just know it can happen both ways.
Yeah.
So sometimes you let somebody through who has a weapon because you didn't check their weight, and sometimes the person's papers are in order and they precisely went on a diet to lose 2 pounds and then strap 2 pounds of explosives to themselves.
Right.
So they beat the system.
Yeah.
Get on them.
Yeah. Losing weight's hard.
Yeah. Exactly. Gaining bombs is hard.
Yeah.
Presumably. Day 13. Because of this incident, the Ministry of Information actually hires a new director.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he comes in and starts wrecking shop. We have a requirement that all foreigners need to apply like this identity supplement, which lists their physical characteristics. This is where you start being able to check their weight specifically. And also there are vague descriptions. So like if somebody is overweight, it'll say they're overweight. If they have cool sideburns, it'll say killer sideburns.
Yeah, these are very funny.
I like
Good
the
hair.
idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea of somebody in Kalechi just like looking at somebody and saying, "Oh, sick burns, dude."
Yes, sweet stash. These get very confusing too, because sometimes it will be like wavy hair, and it's like, why is that wavy?
Yeah.
That's not the term I would have used for this. You can always just check the discrepancy, and it will say yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of a shortcut. Yeah.
End of the day, a soccer player comes through. There's been a couple times I've been mentioned, I believe, in the newspaper about the Ostatskan soccer team. And he's lost his ID card. He gives you, before you approve him or deny him, he gives you a poster to put up. This will play in later in a funny way, possibly. And but he does not have his ID card. So it's up to you whether you want to let in the sports star because of a celebrity or deny him.
I denied him, and he got real indignant. I even gave you a banner. Come on.
Yep. Sorry, bud.
Oh, man. So day 14, Arstotzka has picked up a little bit of a bad reputation for being a haven for criminals. So now we get the most wanted list. So we have little, even lower res pictures of faces, and we have to identify when, a wanted criminal is coming through.
And this is very hard because it's very much guaranteed that, or it's not guaranteed that they will go through.
Right.
Like you can go the whole day, like this first day, because of tutorial reasons, you're going to get a criminal. After this, it is random.
Right.
So this is just a thing that may fire. And it's just an added step. But just for people who have never played the game, like think about how many steps we've added. Like we're halfway through the game and there's just so many different forms of ID. And that is the mounting anxiety that is Papers, Please.
Yes. And by the time you have forgotten, because it has been so long since you got nabbed for a criminal, they'll come through and you'll be dinged for it. Yep. Again, paranoia.
That's the only real mechanic added to this day. The one thing I would say at this game, if it was, I think it would probably use fewer down days.
Yeah.
Like this adds a mechanic, but nothing else really happens on it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the revolution plot needs to move every day, but it's a little more diffuse. And that does serve a purpose. Like it lures you into a false sense of security, but it does mean that like there are just days you'll play where like not only is there nothing really to talk about in the context of the show, but like at the end of the day, you're like, well, nothing really happened there. Like,
well,
let's move on.
What did that add up to? Like maybe there's a, like that is there to like smooth out a resource curve somehow. Like just those easy days are there for you to rack up some money. So you'll have something to, as a buffer for when things get hard later, but I don't know. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Day 15 ends up being a little bit harrowing because your first guy comes through, screams death to Arstotzka, and throws a bomb into your booth.
Yep.
So this goes from being stressful to being very funny, because your corrupt guard buddy, is just insulted that the bomb is so simple and so poorly made. He's not even hurrying to help you disarm it. He doesn't disarm it himself. He's just complaining about what an insult it is that it's even here.
Yep. So you have to disarm it. This doesn't come up very often. I was like, oh, now I'm disarming bombs. Fuck. But it's not really. It's
a one-time scripted thing.
Yeah.
Just
a little bit of humor. Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, this day is unremarkable. An EZIC agent came through. One of the hooded guys said, "You failed us once, don't fail us again." I guess I just didn't catch one of the one of the folks. So that kind of is like a ding against me. I think that like in the final summation, you can be denied the good ending for Ezek if you miss more than 2 of their events or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They want you to get those people in to start seeding things.
Yes.
So yeah, this day only starts off strong. After that, not a whole lot happens. Day 16. So the ministries have a staff shortage, which means the outer guard is no longer there. We no longer have this guard. Here's a key to this thing you presumably had in your booth the whole time.
Right.
It is a tranquilizer gun.
Yep.
You can come through and turns this into like a first-person shooter almost. Like you click on things to shoot it.
Yeah, it's like the shooting interface from Oregon Trail almost. Yeah. Like your cursor turns into the crosshairs. So weirdly, like the drawer only pops down when the alarm is up. There are 2 guns. One of which you officially have, access to with the key, the tranquilizer gun. It's really tense because you have to remember where you left the key and then pick it up and then drag it over to the keyhole. And you don't know if that's enough time, to get them.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to put paperwork on top of the key.
Yep.
And not realize you've done it.
So just a very real moment of like panicked shuffling as you try and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other gun is a lethal gun, but that comes through in a story event later. So
a man comes through who wants to come through for medical reason because there is a surgery that he needs. Is banned in Klechia. This is kind of like a special event here. Near the end of the day, someone does hop the barricade. Anytime there's a new mechanic introduced, you're going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get the gun out and shoot him. And it's incredibly like you fumble with keys.
Mm-hmm.
In this. It's not actually hard to hit somebody because you're just putting the mouse over them.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very hard to get the gun out.
Yes. This time it is, a little bit fortunate, I guess, that if you miss him, then the guards inside just shoot him. That's the difference between him being tranquilized and him being killed. So you have to, deal with that yourself. Regardless, you still get a bonus monetarily if this happens, even if you didn't hit them, as long as you get shot off. You get more money for hitting them, but it's a way to at least dampen that impact a little bit.
Get your sharpshooter bonus or whatever, because it does cut off the day.
Yes.
When this happens, no more people get in.
Day 17 introduces a new character, Sergio. He is this new guard who actually comes from the same town as you. There's like a little bit of dialogue. This is the first bit of characterization that your point of view character has gotten. Like, oh yeah, both of you are from this rural backwater. And you just kind of commiserate, like, yeah, still the same shithole as it always was.
Yep. He's your buddy.
Yeah.
Like he's becoming friends with you. This whole idea that they are taking people from your garbagey little town because of guard shortages.
Yeah.
Is telling as well.
Yeah.
Kind of behind the scenes. An Ezek agent comes through with a note and says, like, listen, you probably think that we're responsible for the border attacks. This is to assuage you if you're doing a revolutionary run through and you're thinking like, I don't know about these guys. Yeah. He's like, no, we're not doing that. We want to destabilize power centers within.
Right.
We're not doing these border attacks.
Right. Different people, continue helping us, please.
Yep.
Yeah. And this day has our first journalist. You have journalists who try and get in with just their press passes in lieu of a bunch of other stories, or a bunch of other papers. I have no idea what this is trying to say about journalism, because when you deny them entry, they write an expose about, just how repressive the regime is. If you let them through, they write an expose about how lax the borders are.
Yeah. You can't really win. With that.
Oh, well.
Day 18. So because of this bad press, regardless of how it came about, your bosses now say there needs to be a reason for denial.
Right.
Stamp. Luckily, there's not one stamp for every reason.
Right.
You just have to, it's an additional step. When you deny someone, you have to put a second stamp on there.
Right. So this is for, if before you were just kind of noticing, oh yeah, this is expired and rejecting them, this adds the extra step of you have to go to the rule sheet and say like every document, must be current. Right.
Yep.
In order to cause this, stamp to, fly out for you to use. Yeah.
The first person gets rejected and they're like, why? And you're like, I refer you to the stamp. It's like,
oh, well, screw you anyways. Like,
yeah. Extremely cold bureaucratic thing to say.
Right.
Yep.
Oh.
This day is also cut short by someone jumping the fence.
Mm-hmm.
You get a chance to shoot him. There's a very specific alarm that goes off when it's time to get out the tranq rifle. And if you shoot him, you get a bonus.
Yeah. And you might want that. You might want to shoot a man so you can get your son a birthday present.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Because, he wants a $25 crayon set, which is the same as a day's rent.
Yeah. It is 17,000 crayons. It's colors they haven't even invented yet.
Yep. It is an entire hex code worth of crayons. Yeah.
So, if you can imagine what, if $1 is for 8 crayons, I guess the math is pretty simple there.
Yeah, it really is.
It is a lot of crayons. But you get it for them, and again, no benefit.
Right. Well,
you just do it because it's a good thing to do, and it makes you feel a little bit more human to do it.
Yeah. Well, you get them for him, and then the next day he gives you a drawing of you and your family, and it's a drawing of you as like a hero protecting our Stotska, and you can hang it up in your booth, and you even get people who insult it.
Yeah. I love insulting kid art.
Yeah. Your kids' finger paintings suck. Yeah. So it's a good thing to do. Is there something beeping on your end?
There is. My, you can leave this in.
Uh-huh.
My Gudetama Tamagotchi.
Boof?
Do you know who Gudetama is?
No.
He is that extremely sad little egg. He's a Sanrio character who is an egg who's really over it.
Okay.
He's very funny. Like if you look him up, he's great.
Okay.
I bought a Tamagotchi of him. This little egg-shaped keychain. Very cute. And the way it articulates is it's like a Tamagotchi. Like you feed it and everything. You play a really simple game. You cheer it up when it's pouty. But because he's an egg dish, every once in a while, a pair of chopsticks comes from off screen to try to eat him, and I have to scare it away.
Hey, Gary, I gotta tell you, I don't know how happy I am that you've got this noise-making thing that can interrupt a show.
I don't. It doesn't usually do it.
Okay.
So I just need to remember to turn off the sound or put it somewhere. He's new.
Okay.
But every once in a while, a pair of chopsticks come through to eat him.
Okay.
And I guess the win condition is he can turn into one of 8 different egg dishes if I raise him all the way, and then I can eat him to start over. I guess that's the win condition. He eats soy sauce.
Huh.
Except when he's sad, he eats a tomato, like a whole tomato.
Oh, yeah.
But he's pretty cute.
No, I really enjoy this character. It's quite good. I was not familiar with him, but now I am all about Gudetama. So yeah.
Gudetama owns.
Yeah.
Sanrio is great. They got big challenges. You ever seen Big Challenges?
No.
It's a crocodile. They never used it, but it's just a crocodile named Big Challenges. It's really good. It's extremely good. Sanrio is great.
Yeah. Wow. I love that design. Yeah, I had no idea. Big Challenges
is an all-time favorite. I've thought about getting that as a tattoo before. I really like Big Challenges. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm from Circumstances. I got big challenges.
So hopefully my tiny little Gudetama will continue to nap now that I've scared away the evil chopsticks.
Okay, cool.
So
it's fine. You can have whatever you want. I thought it would be fun to pretend to be angry about it.
Yeah, he's generally well behaved. So. Yep.
Let's see here. So we get the reason for denial stamp, the crayons, we're back on day 19. There we go.
Yep.
So we get some sanctions. Impor, kind of the stand-in for China, I believe, China or Japan, has begun sanctioning trade from our Stotska. So in retaliation, we're like, well, fuck you. Nobody from Impor can come to our Stotska.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Georgie shows up again. And this is one of my favorite moments with him. His weight is different, so you put him through the scanner. You see something taped to his leg, and you start kind of having a little bit of characterization here, which doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But you're just kind of like, Georgie, you know that better than this. It's just like, what is this attached to your leg? He's like, is drugs. He's so happy.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
It just his disguise is really disguise. That's the only word I can think of. It's so paper thin. There's almost no bullshit about him except for that one initial bullshit. After that, he immediately comes clean.
Well, one of the things I love about him, too, is when you deny him, the reason why he's okay with it is because he just has to go bribe the people at the secret police or whatever.
Oh, if you detain him, he just gets out.
Yeah. Yeah, he just gets out. He just bribes those people. He just understands.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh no, this is just how the world works.
Yeah, no, decided like, like don't hate the player, hate the game. But I kind of like the game because it makes me a lot of money. So we'll be back here. It's like the Looney Tunes where like the cat and the mouse check out at the like clock out of work at the end of the day and go to the bar together.
Yep. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
he's a wonderful character.
Yeah. So Georgie is very good. Even the blanket sanction on import you end up feeling kind of good about it because it is just a very quick prima facie reason to not have to examine everybody's documents all the way. Like, oh, you're from import. I can just get you out. Like, let's just bring in more people. Again, I don't feel good for liking that, but here we are.
Yep. So day 20, import has seeded. So like these methods you're doing actually are working, these kind of bully methods.
Yeah.
So they've been lifted. So now we can let those people in.
Yeah.
You get this picture to hang up in your booth, as we mentioned. The Imperial Authority comes by to issue another certificate, either of excellence, sufficiency, or just to chew you out.
Mm-hmm. In addition to that, he says, hey, I've got a friend coming by, Piersovka. Please let them through.
Yep.
So it's your boss telling you to break the rules. I'm curious what you did.
I did it. I think the game ends if you don't.
Oh shit! Really?
With this, I think so. It either that or another choice comes through, because I think this did lead to a fail condition, but it might be 2 strikes with this person. It might be something that came earlier. This is a little bit of a victim of me getting too far ahead on work. So it's been a few weeks since I played this. So some of the details are falling down for me, but I believe that you have to make this person happy one way or another.
Okay.
Or you can't actually proceed.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Either that or I broke the rules because it was my boss.
Oh, okay.
So my loyalty was not necessarily to the rules, but to the state.
Yes.
Yep.
Gotcha. Figuring he would be the one who would get in trouble, not you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Today, an music agent comes through and says, hey, we've got an assassin who is going to mess things up. His name is Khalid Istam, and what you need to do in order to stop him from wrecking our plans is poison him. They give you
this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very delicate what is happening. So they give you an envelope that has a white powder in it, but to apply it, you need to like rub it up against the passport when it comes through. In my head, what I thought that meant was just like put this in between the document and the stamp. So like, yes, I give you the approval, but it is the approval that kills you. No, you end up having to like rub it. And it's very specific where you need to click and how you need to layer things. So he ended up getting through. And this was another thing that I failed. If you touch that powder yourself, it's an instant game over. If you do end up poisoning him, he vomits blood right on the other way, like right on the other side of the checkpoint. And I think somebody comes up and gets poisoned as well by helping him.
Yep. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Difficult and pretty intense.
Yeah. So, that's pretty fucked up that they're asking you to kill people for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of a big line, even though I've probably effectively led to more than one death by the decisions I've made. This is very direct.
More than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to day 21, there's a new rule that our Statska has started accepting asylum seekers.
Right.
So if they have an asylum card, we let them through. And this involves checking on their fingerprints and several other things.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm curious what you did as a loyalist with the man who came by asking for a red stamp so he could break a contract.
If he was anybody, so if he was acceptable, then I gave him the acceptance. I didn't reject anybody. So I accepted him.
He was acceptable. Everything was in line. He wanted to get a better job in Impor and to break the contract. No, I let him through. Yep. So he went through and got the shitty job in our Statska. Yeah, I slipped him a solid. It was fine.
Yeah. Yep.
We also had a man who came up saying like, hey, I don't have to write paperwork right now, but I'll give you my watch as collateral and come back in 3 days. I didn't accept this because I wear this watch. People are going to ask, where'd you get that watch? Yeah. Because the neighbors. You can also just take the watch and then reject him. Oh, well, that's shitty. Yeah, it is. It's 1982. Super shitty, but his papers aren't good. Yeah. He doesn't deserve a watch.
He doesn't deserve a watch. Yeah, you can't afford a watch if you can't afford good papers. The day ends. A person with a motorcycle from our side rides up and shoots a guard.
Yeah.
Yep.
You trank him and the bike explodes. Yeah.
Yep.
And this immediately made me realize, A, and B, made me paranoid about the traffic that passes by on the right-hand side. I never noticed that there were cars driving by before this.
Yep. And now sometimes they're motorcycles. Kill motorcycles.
Kill cycles.
Yep. And then to add complication to this, that night, your sister has been arrested because, again, this is too totalitarian and rough.
Right.
So you have the option to take in her daughter.
Right.
At this point, it's another mouth to feed. Like, this ends up being very similar to like a big sister or little sister choice in BioShock, where like it's a temporary disadvantage for a big advantage later. Like, you end up making more money from taking her.
Do you?
Yes. Like, you get, after you take her, you get, she sends you her savings.
Oh shit. Yeah.
I want to say. Yeah. So like, you take her, it's an additional, $5 per night or whatever. But then she gives you like $80 or $100 or something like that.
Yeah. So you break even. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just have to be well off enough to handle that loss in the short term.
Yep. Again, you want to have that cushion for things like this when they pop up, if you're able to.
Yeah. Day 22, Sergio, he comes up and says, yeah, there's actually more action at this checkpoint than I ever saw in the Kalechian War.
Yep.
Additionally, the sports star comes back with his documents. He wants the banner back, though.
Yep.
But it's all beat up when I give it to him. I cannot believe how precious this banner is to him.
Yeah, I do not give it back. So no,
you don't get it.
It's mine. Georgie comes back. He's like, no, I bribed the detention guards,
right?
But I have drugs again,
right?
As well. So I'll save you the time.
Yeah, I'll save you the time. But in order to reject him, you have to scan him. And when the shutter closes, says maybe things get too sexy in here as the flashbulb goes off.
We all yearn to be Georgie.
Yeah,
and have Georgie's attitude.
I like a reed in the wind. Yep,
I would like to be able to respond to life slings and arrows with that kind of,
Yeah, Georgie is the best.
Yeah, I love him.
Day 23 adds another wrinkle. There's polio again.
The anti-vaxxers have gotten their way.
Yep, in the United Federation, which weirdly, even though they've got just straight up American town names, is supposed to be modeled after Latvia. No, Yugoslavia. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, like polio resurgence in United Federation, that's going to come to us in a big way a little bit later on. Yeah.
Yep. So an EZIC agent comes through. The guy that, if we gave the powder to the guy, he did not die. Another assassination is coming up and says, here's the key. Actually, so we have this for some reason to your super gun, to your lethal gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you use it, you'll be caught, but we'll take care of your family.
Right. So fuck you for asking me to do that. Yeah. Like, you're asking me to sacrifice myself for your cause. Yeah. All right.
Well, even if it's a good cause, it's just a big choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough stuff.
Yeah. And why would I trust that you would take care of my family? Yep. Better than I would. Like, it's pretty, it's rough.
Have you seen these crayons?
Would you get these crayons from my boy?
Yeah. We got burnt orange, motherfucker.
But this is really neat because there is a person in your line who is colored red. Everybody else is normally like a gray, just kind of a shadow in it. And the trick is, they're going to cause the alarm so the gun will drop down. But one of the guys is going to jump the fence. It is up to you to not trank that person who jumps over, but instead to take that opportunity to shoot the assassin who is standing in the line.
Yep. And I obviously don't do this because in my playthrough, I did not truck with EZIC.
Yeah. And even though I was trucking with EZIC or attempting to, I was like, nah, no. Also, it's going to end the game and I need to play all of it to talk about it. So
yeah, getting ending 16 of 20 is not
not very attractive. Yeah.
We should mention that you can go and kind of start on different days in this. Like, it does have a pretty robust kind of rewind system to go check out stuff you maybe missed. Yeah. So even though, it's asking a lot when it does that kind of stuff, it's not so bad.
Yeah. You can just do the day over.
Yep. Just to see what happens.
Yes. Day 24, the Ministry of Information is really suspicious of insurgent activity in the Altan district of Arstotzka. We have a confiscation drawer now, and any passports that are from that issuing district, we need to hold back.
Yep, you confiscate them. And this is like the beginning of the like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Super totalitarian stuff you're going to start doing.
Yeah, like all of a sudden we're starting to clamp down on our own people for suspicion. Yep. Yeah, no good.
Yep, and start, confiscating passports.
Yes.
Which is pretty fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the power of somebody to leave the country.
Yeah, a basic human right of movement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the first entrant is, of course, this, because they always tutorialize with the first person.
Mm-hmm.
You take his passport and you give them this little slip. Mm-hmm. It's like essentially just like the thing you get when you get a speeding ticket.
Yeah. Whenever anybody asks, like, what is this? What do I do? Your only answer is call the number.
Call the number.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that would be enlightening if you did. He wants it back. He won't accept it. So you actually have him detained.
Right.
Because he will not leave the booth. Rightly so.
Right. Yeah. An EZIC agent shows up and says, hey, you didn't kill that that dude's now all of our agents in Kolechia are in danger, so our plan must adapt.
Yep.
And then Georgie comes back.
Yep.
He comes back, and he does you a huge favor. He says, oh, I for sure am not in criminal bulletin. And you probably noticed when the printout came, oh, that's Georgie's face. He's most wanted.
Yep. Yep. He even just says, like, I bribed the police to keep me out of there. But he is, of course, in there. And
at this point, I don't really feel bad about detaining him because I know he's going to get out.
Yeah, he's a snake. He's a cobra.
It's a game of cat and mouse. He's from Cobristan.
Yep. Which beats both the cat and the mouse.
Yep.
A cat will eat a mouse and a cobra eat a cat. So moving on to day 25, the polio cases in the United Federation have turned into an epidemic, an outbreak. So now anybody from the United Federation cannot come in for medical reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So Sergiu comes up and says, hey, my sweetheart from the war, somebody I met from Kolechia, she's going to be coming in today. Here's her name and here's a locket with her picture in it. Please let her through. Which is the most no-brainer choice to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, I didn't let him through because she didn't have the right papers.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not great. Like, it's not a fun playthrough.
No. This is where the person mocks my son's drawing, says maybe he should try sports. And even that has a little bit of a human edge to it. It's like, yeah, I really shouldn't have made fun of your kid. I'm just really stressed out.
Yep. Yeah, after you let him in. Because his things are in order, even though I think it's trying to tempt you to denying him for
for insulting your son.
Reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a pretty eventful day, too, because you get the woman who gives you the love note.
Mm-hmm. 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 This is pretty great.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a work, and this is instead of a work entry.
Right.
Yeah. So it gives you this like very cute little love poem, which you can hold on to. Like, you don't have to let her through.
Right.
You still get to hold on to the poem. Because after this, another person comes through and says, my life is terrible. Nobody loves me. And you can give them the note in a very like dropsy way or something.
Yeah. Dropsy is a good comparison. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I have this. And she says, oh, the bit about the checkpoint at the end here is really weird, but
this makes sense. But this seems nice.
But it still lightens her day.
A little funny joke.
Yeah. Oh man, just little moments of humanity. All of us should work to lighten each other's load.
Yep.
Yes. This is the day that our boss's friend comes by, Pierce Kavga. That's particularly insidious because you might just forget that he asked you to let her in.
Yeah.
Like, it's asking you to remember her name for several days.
And again, there's no in-game way to write that down notes.
Right.
Yeah. It decides what you should be remembering.
Yes. So she's got diplomatic papers. They don't line up. If you want the game to go on, you have to let her through. Turns out she's not really his friend. She's just a side piece for him. She says, I hope he tires more easily now.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to be in Arstotzka for very long.
Nope.
Yeah.
So a little bit sad.
Yep.
Moving on to day 26. Now there are vaccination records because of this plague. Mm-hmm. So mostly another expiration date.
Right.
To check.
Yeah, or there are people who are vaccinated for a bunch of stuff, but not polio.
Yeah, exactly. That to be for polio specifically.
Yeah.
Lisa shows up, who your buddy's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Point. She only has a passport. She doesn't have everything else, but you can choose to let her go or not.
Yeah. Or you choose to let her through because human connection's fucking sacred and no state can take that away from you.
Yeah. That is what the game, is trying to make you make the decision between give up your mistakes, such.
Yeah.
There are asylum seekers who don't have the right vaccination records. Where you have to kind of turn them away again in almost a justified way. Like you don't want them to cause an outbreak.
Right.
Or an outbreak, Yeah.
You're weighing their life against everybody they may infect. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, this one, you get a pincer attack that ends the day. There's a motorcycle bomb and some people hopping the fence. Like, it's just escalating. And we're kind of getting into the end game.
Starting with 27, your buddy shows up, thanks you for letting his girlfriend in, but wants to name their first son after you. It's very sweet.
Yep.
They said they'll give you a gift as thanks, and that he's going to get transferred at this point.
Yeah. So the new rule today is, to improve security, foreigners have to present this consolidated entry permit, which is nice because it actually condenses a few documents down so they can add more later on. But this is the access permit, which is very funny because people, you say like, where's your access permit? Like, oh, my entry permit's right here. What's the difference?
Yeah, exactly. It's anonymous.
Yeah.
Fuckwits.
Oh man. Ezek shows up again. They don't want these diplomatic talks to proceed because they feel like Kolechia is dragging Arstotzka further into this kind of corruption, this corrupt totalitarian direction. So they say, hey, please confiscate the actual envoy's passport and give it to our guy so we can assume his identity. Yeah.
Yep. So you again, depending on which one you're doing, you either do this or not.
Yeah. I mean, and you're definitely condemning this diplomat to death by taking his papers.
Yep. He is not happy about it.
Yeah. Also not happy is the decoy, right? He says like, oh, we look very much alike, but I must shave my mustache. We all must make sacrifices.
Again, cute little jokes in this, which make it more tolerable as a depressing slog.
It leavens it.
That it is. Day 28, the diplomat behaves strangely, spoiling the talks. That says that in the newspaper. So living through the false diplomat kind of messes with the talks. Now, the new rule is you have to confiscate all Arstotzkan passports.
No good.
Trying to figure out who is behind the attack. The government is paranoid and just literally taking away that right of travel from people, like making people a prisoner in the country. Like, yes, you get in, but you don't get out.
So we are definitely being cracked down on, and things are getting far more dire. This house is on fire and all of the doors are sealed up. So what we need is a meathead to come through, criticize our physique, and give us a flyer for his gym. Get Big Town.
Get Big Town is very good.
Get Big Town, now opening a branch in Cobristan.
Yeah, I love Get Big Town. There's another motorcycle attack, though. It's seemingly happening almost every day.
Yeah.
Now. And when you go home, you find out that the Ministry of Information has confiscated your family's passports.
Yep.
Well, fuck.
Yeah.
The time to get out would have been earlier that day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Day 29 somehow gets even darker. There's a newspaper headline about a serial child killer who has gotten out of United Federation prison. His name is Simon Wenz, and he's an Arstotzkan native.
Yep. So it's like, well, and of course his papers are going to be in order.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really, really turning the screws. Like, you follow the rules, huh?
Yeah.
Children, do you?
So weirdly, he's on the criminal bulletin. So like there are two different ways it can go. He can be arrested, or you can do what the father wants you to do.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah, so we just talk about that while we're still here. The father shows up at the end of the day, but he comes by and says, hey, here is a picture of my daughter, instead of giving you any papers, saying, hey, when Simon Wenz comes through, confiscate his passport and then give it to me later. That way I can do what I need to do for my daughter. And the way that this turns out is this father goes and kills Simon Wenz. Like,
he takens them.
Yeah, you like, and I forget the way that it puts this. It talks about his death, saying Simon Wens found dead in confusing mess. So this dad didn't just kill this guy; he dismembered him.
Yeah, yep. I think that is the thing I was thinking of that I did not do.
Yeah,
because against rules.
Right.
But they want you to take him. You can just have him arrested.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there's something where like he gets out. I don't think that sticks if he's arrested.
Okay.
But I do not totally recall.
Yeah. Day 29 also begins with your creepy supervisor in the booth. If you don't take down your drawings while he's talking to you or anything not from the state that's up there, like you end up getting a fine for that.
Yep. Yeah, for inappropriate.
Yes.
And non-standard
personal
stuff.
effects. More worryingly,
Georgie shows up again.
Oh no, the creepy supervisor, he's there to warn you that your audit is coming soon.
Your final audit, which is the end game.
Yes.
Essentially. Georgie shows up. Says like, listen, things are getting super crazy in our Statska. You've been good to me. And I've been like, hey, I haven't really actually. You say, yeah, I know my family's passports are confiscated. And he says, listen, I know I have a forgery guy. You know me. If you want to escape, start taking Orbistan's passports. So we can use them as basis for yours and have enough money for the forgeries.
Yeah.
And we'll get you some fake passports.
Yeah. So all you have to do is, violate some people's rights to save your family.
Solid, bro. Which
is kind of what you've been doing the entire time, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just a more extreme version of it.
Right. A more direct version. Fewer steps toward fucking people over.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty intense. Moving on to day 30. Greston is this wedge in these negotiations between Kolechia and as Statska. There.
Yeah. And to remind you what the stakes are in all of this, your wife has found a picture of your family. So you can hang that up. No, this is the guy who will find you for the personal effects. Yeah.
Yep. So if you have that picture up of your family, you get fined for it.
Yeah.
The Wens guy, the child killer, comes through, and again they want you to admit him, so he can get murdered by Liam Neeson. And if you send him through, you get cited because he actually should be rejected rather.
Yes.
So that's just putting a child killer in Kolechia.
Right.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, it's still not good. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me see
just
here.
About the end. Yeah, like this is, so we finished the Taken storyline.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of boilerplate, like a wife goes through, is afraid that the border is going to actually close up. Will you let me through? I don't want to be separate from my husband.
Yeah.
Etc. But really, we're in the end game here.
Yes. The end game where Georgie shows up to brag about his big score because you helped him. Like, yeah, no, I've been slinging a ton of drugs. I made a lot of money. You've helped me and you didn't even realize it. So here's a bunch of money.
Yep. It's a little weird that you just get that money anyway. I think they wanted to not close off the third ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like this day 32 ends up being just kind of your ending. Day 31 is the way things can kind of shake out for either direction, because there's going to be a big attack and it is up to you to decide who to kill in order to stop this all, in order to, figure out whether Ezek's going to get in or whether the state's going to remain.
Yep. You can also, up until this point, so even previous to this, once you have enough passports, you can leave. Yeah. You have the option to leave during your night shift or whatever. And you can leave by yourself.
Yeah, like the definition of enough is pretty flexible. Like it can be you and your son, your wife and your son. You can leave your extended family in the lurch. Like, yeah, like the golden ending is to save everybody, but that just might not be possible.
And the way that actually articulates when you choose that early ending is actually really good, because they kind of, in a very tense way, describe you going to the border and going through the same thing you went through, and it's very like, oh, like I have rejected tons of people for this, but you just get through because it's not our Statska.
Yeah. Like,
and it's
they're not
reasonable, they're not paying as close attention because they're not a totalitarian regime.
Yeah. Even though you, as a person who has done this, can spot immediately how fake this is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yeah. You want to do that. You want to flee if you are in kind of a halfway through situation. Specifically, if you helped Ezek at all, but didn't help them enough for Ezek to take over, then your audit will come and you are, imprisoned and then summarily executed that same night.
Yep. Found for helping them and everything. If you have been turning them down at every turn and fight off this terrorist attack in day 31, in day 32 when the auditor arrives, he pretty much commends you for just being a loyal citizen, and you are brought on board with just a job.
Yeah.
You're transferred to a different booth, and it's pretty much like life as usual for you.
Yes.
Yep.
But if you go to Oberstan, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Like you just end up living in a snowy country with your family.
Yep. And there's also a revolutionary ending if you do the Ezek stuff correctly, and you get through there and you are given kind of a place in the revolution.
Yes.
Like a place of honor.
Yeah.
In there. The final little encounter with that, the van that comes through, is a difficult combat encounter for what the combat engine is in this game.
It is super.
It is tricky.
It's super tense because they plow down through the guards, and then it is two of them who are walking toward you, and you have to get 2 shots off on them before they get close enough to fire on you.
And that ends up being the end of Papers, Please. You get an exceedingly short little ending. Like I said, it is just a couple screens here. And there are a bunch of different ones. Again, the other variations, those are the good endings. And when we say good, it doesn't necessarily mean like good in terms of good, bad, but good as in a complete story.
Yes.
As opposed to just like, you couldn't pay your rent 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that game. It did give me anxiety dreams. Specifically, 2 of them, like just kind of were dredged up from like when I did data entry jobs, and there was somebody who just like double checked our work, and we would get emails like a few minutes after we submitted an order. If it was wrong, it'd be like, hey, you have this, you have a certain number of violations left. And when you're entering those, like you have to just enter every letter exactly correct. Make sure everything adds up. It's tough.
It's very stressful.
Yeah. So
the experience, this is definitely the last time I need to play this game. And ultimately playing it before was probably enough for me if we weren't covering it for the show. Yeah.
I thought that I had played more of it before when this game came out and it was more part of the moment, but I only did I think 8 days. The additional complications are really interesting, but overall, I feel like I got it by that point, and I don't know if that speaks to the game's credit or if it speaks to there just being too much of it and it sells past the close.
Well, you can get it fairly early on, but it's also a little bit more when how much it kind of turns the screws.
Yeah.
Like you can be like, oh, I get that the screws are going to be turned. Yeah. But the increasing intensity and kind of increasing desperation that happens ramps up continuously and slowly. Like it feels a little bit different than like a Pathologic, which for some reason is I'm sorry. I did not expect it to keep doing that.
I'm leaving it in.
Yeah. No, he wants to play a game, and the game is like a shell game, but in an eggshell.
Okay.
With him. And he's sleeping. Go back to sleep, bud. God. So I will figure out how to mute that. I thought I muted it last night too. It turned itself back on. I guess like Pathologic is the closest point of comparison, but with Pathologic, there's more ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And then it starts becoming, and this is good, this isn't bad about Pathologic, but starts becoming like trippy.
Yeah.
This isn't trippy really. It's just that feeling of starvation and privation, and just slowly ramped up over the course of quite a while, 32 in-game days. And that is a singular experience in games. Like it's close to Pathologic for things we've done on the show, and things we haven't done on the show. It's closest to Cart Life.
Yes.
Which have you played Cart Life?
Oh God. Yeah. I like Cart Life quite a bit.
I mean, I feel the same way about Cart Life as I do about this. Like I mean, I like it, but I don't ever want to play it again. Like it's super not fun. It's extremely stressful to me.
Yeah.
For
even though this does, go on for quite a bit, what it did do was create room for me to think about these issues and this concept. you know, in a way. And then, I mean, the aforementioned stuff about how effectively it puts you in a mindset, you know, of somebody who is in this situation, you know, because of the incentives it creates. It is a wonderful integration of play, theme, and message, I think. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any more to say about it. Like, it's a relatively short and simple game for the show, but ends up dealing with some complex shit.
Yeah.
In a way that is just worth thinking about. Again, it doesn't have too much of a it doesn't come down on a side.
No.
Which is, you know, again, the big difference for me with the short film. Like, this doesn't really say, like, you know, obviously Arstotzka is considered bad.
Right.
In this, and like the side of humanity is probably, you know, the moral choice to make, but it really is more about how these systems allow for that kind of oppression.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you think about, you know, where the line is drawn, because some of the stuff that you're doing, stopping drugs from coming in, stopping people with bombs from coming in, like that inarguably saves lives. Right.
Yeah.
You know, but like, what is the cost? Right. Yeah.
Like in the you know, the fact that we are dealing with something similar to that now,
right,
in real life in the United States, like in with our border, no one is really arguing that people can't go over a border with bombs or bring diseases into the country. Yeah, and that's what's super frustrating when any nuanced take that does not keep them all out, when they argue that it is an argument for no law. Right. Yeah. For completely open. You know, there are people making that argument, but there's a lot of space there. Yeah. And not even like a milquetoast centrist way. Like, just there's a lot of space there that is like, yes, that can happen, but surely, like these draconian measures you're talking about, not just surely, but like evidence. Yeah. Evidently. Like, yeah, like evidently, like, you know, the information shows that these arguments you're making are false. Right. And that's part of that, like, 2019 eyes of playing this game, is how much shittier it feels. You know, like the version of this, like, you could do a hack of this that is our southern border. And it just, the newspaper, you know, you get up and it's just like, oh, like, immigrants depress wages. And you could be like, well, I know they don't. You know, actually, like, you know, it's actually like, you know, the way they do is by ultra capitalists, like, hiring them instead of, you know, being able to hire at lower wages. But they don't. They improve the economy, you know, like that is a proven thing that studies show. Like, but just being told that they don't, and being told to enforce this thing, like, it does feel a little bit like Ice Agent Junior. Yeah. When you play this in a way that's like very, very shitty. Yeah. And does give this a kind of additional resonance in this year. Yeah. I mean, you know? And it's been you know, I don't know how I feel about the fact that I've, you know, playing this game now feels so much different than it did before in 2014. You know, I mean, yes, there is a reason. It's because we have a garbage monster as a president who, you know, wants to treat these places where countries and cultures press up against each other in the most inhumane way possible. Like, that is a way that it has been brought home. But like, this is modeled after real life problems that exist that people have to live under throughout the entire world and have for centuries. You know? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's grotesque. Yeah. It is grotesque. It's almost like we picked a really depressing theme for this month. Who's we? Well, me and the mouse in my pocket. Hey, yeah, hey, Gary, do you want to eat Preston? We. Yeah. So we didn't pick shit. Michael did. Yeah. Michael Benavides. We still appreciate it, though. Yeah. So good stuff. Absolutely good stuff. If you have anything to say about Papers, Please, Frostpunk, or Stalker, Shadows of Chernobyl, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact. Just in the pure hopes that I don't get asked this like 1,000 times. I understand people mean well. I am playing Stalker without mods. We're playing Stalkers without mods. Like, that is somehow like the most common question. Yeah. And it's so weird to me because I think there's an accepted wisdom that you can't play this without mods. Like, this is the second time I played through the game. It plays fine without mods. Yeah, yeah. I am very surprised by the kind of discourse. It's like, oh, like what mod pack are they doing? Yeah. It's not Oblivion. Like, it's just, you know, it's like, it plays okay, guys. Yeah, yeah. You know? No, so we're doing vanilla. The only way I've modified the game is to turn down the head wobble. So I do too. Anything that's altering a .ini file is not modding. Right, right. I decree. I also turned down the Flog and Stomp because it is extremely too much. Yeah. So if you have anything to say about those 3 games, that's what we're covering this month.
For the next month, so the deadline for responses is always the 15th of every month. If you have things to say about April's games,
yep.
Sorry, no,
which are ODST.
Yeah, or no, so it's Spec Ops: The Line, Halo 3 ODST, and the 2019 Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yep. The deadline for that is also the 15th.
Yep.
If it is April and you're in the Midwest, the weekend of April 12th, we will be at the Midwest Gaming Classic, talking about games that allow you to make art in them, or encourage rather, not just allow. I do not want to get a billion semantic arguments about, like Spore allows you to make sculptures and art is subjective and stuff. Take that stuff, shove it up your ass. That is not, you know what we mean.
Yep.
So don't be that person.
Technically correct is not the best type of correct.
Yeah. Technically correct is actually oftentimes the worst type of correct. We're not playing Papers, Please IRL.
Right.
But yeah, come out to the Midwest Gaming Classic. We're going to be boothing all weekend. You come say hi to us. We are nice. And you can watch us do a panel.
Yes.
And we'll have a meetup and we'll throw up some details about that as soon as we figure out where that's at and watch social media for that.
Yeah. Come on out. Last year there was a blizzard and I know there were a lot of people who weren't able to make it. Check it this time. Check and see.
Yeah. Check for a blizzard. Hopefully no blizzard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're looking forward to it.
Think so. I think that's just about everything. People have been killing it on the Patreon. We really appreciate that. Makes a huge difference for us. We're in the process of figuring out where we're going to go for our 3rd live show of the year.
Yep. Yeah, we got a good idea, but we're working on out the details. And as always, like I am interested in hearing about those. If there's a super cool convention in your town that I don't know about, hit me up on Twitter.
Yep.
Also, just because it did just come out recently, I'm going to reiterate the policy just because we do get asked about it. It's always okay to ask us about this stuff, but if we can tell you in advance, like it saves everyone some time. The premium episodes of Watch Out for Fireballs are going to stay on the Patreon in perpetuity. Those never fall off the Patreon feed. Those never go to the free feed. However, they stay on the Patreon feed forever, which means that if you cannot afford to be a patron, we understand. You can put aside $1 a month and, 5 months down the road, throw us $5, listen to all those episodes, and then depatronize, and it will not hurt our feelings.
Yeah, we built that in, so don't feel like you're getting one over on us. Do not feel like that is outside of the system.
That's against the rules or anything. That is the rules. We are making essentially like we are very understanding and welcoming of people who do not support the podcast because they because they're unable to, or if it doesn't. And less so for people who are just like, I shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Like we've decided that's not the case.
Right.
So, and because it's ours, we get to decide what people do to get it.
Yes.
So if you're having a hard time affording it, we have a way around that. Hopefully, people have been very kind and very generous.
Yes.
About that. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably about it. And that's patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yes.
And we will see you in a week's time to talk about Frostpunk.
Yes, we will. I have so much to say.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
Cool.
And until next time, what should they watch out for?
They should watch out for Georgie because he's here to brighten your day.
Look out.